Well, Bill, here she is. And I really do feel that we are in the presence of greatness, not just because of what the car itself is based on its rarity, but also what it represents in the legend of motorsports racing.
This car really pushes all our buttons. This is 1966 Mark I Ford GT road car, which was built in December of 1965 and delivered to the first customer on St. Patty's Day, 1966. P1034, one of 31 road cars that were built.
Yeah, from the padded seats to the carpeting to the slightly more accommodating springs for the road, this truly was a track car that was set up so you could enjoy it on the road.
This could be raced, it was raced, but originally when it left the factory, it had things like a non-ventilated leather interior and leather pockets and 2 fuel gauges and an electric clock, things you don't find on a race car.
This pine green color is quite attractive as well. This is an original bodied car, repainted in its original from the factory color.
Yeah, you're basically looking at the car the way it was originally built in terms of color and equipment. Let's also not overlook the fact that this has a very powerful engine, and it certainly has proven itself on a racetrack in the past. The 289 cubic inch Ford small block engine, the legendary engine that was so responsible for Ford's successes back during that time. 48 IDA Weber carburetors, a very intricate induction system on this car, but it delivered 335, 340 horsepower. In fact, this car comes, believe it or not, with another 289 cubic inch engine, a 5-speed ZF manual transmission. Many of those Ford GTs back in the day, the race cars, had 4 speeds. This has a 5-speed in it. So the powertrain is certainly race ready, you might say, but again, its racing days are over. This is going to be a street car for the rest of its life. It's interesting that the race cars preceded the road cars. The Ford GT program had begun strictly with race cars, and then they moved to the road cars. Yes, granted, to be able to be legal according to the FIA rules, but again, it's just another one of those anomalies about this car that really make its history more fascinating.
Let's talk a little bit about the history of the Ford GT40 program. There's some history and some tension between Henry Ford II and Enzo Ferrari.
Yeah, they thought they had a deal. Henry Ford II, or Hank the Deuce as he was called, thought he had a deal to buy Ferrari's operation. You know, if you're out there trying to compete with somebody and you can't figure out a way to beat them, just buy them, and now you don't have to worry about it anymore. So he left Italy thinking he had the deal, but when he discovered that Ferrari was going to back out because Ferrari wanted to retain control of his racing operation and Ford wanted the whole shebang. So that deal went to the way of all flesh. Next thing you know, Hank the Deuce says, well, I'm going to beat Ferrari at his own game. This was about 1964, and it was at that moment that the great Ford-Ferrari rivalry began. And you know what? Within 2 years, the Ford GT was pretty much calling the tune in long-distance endurance racing by winning Sebring and the 24 Hours of Daytona and, of course, the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
And there was the homologation requirement, and that's where this car comes into play.
Yeah, and I find it fascinating because 31 of the road cars were built. According to FIA regulations, you had to build 50 of the road versions to be legal to race the car in GT competition. Well, 31 is not 50, and yet the car was legalized and it competed, and FIA kind of looked the other way. But for this car to have only 31 examples, the rarity is right off the charts.
I think that what's so attractive about this car is not just the rarity, but what this car represents. That's pretty amazing, the effect that this car and this program had on endurance racing overall, but particularly Le Mans. People are still infatuated with this car because those GT40 wins from 66 to 69 were so groundbreaking and such an accomplishment by Ford entering onto the scene and just sweeping it in that first year of 66. That's really what it's all about, right?
As you mentioned, the win in 1966, they came back in 67 with Dan Gurney and AJ Foyt and just wiped out everybody. And then the following 2 years, even after Ford had suspended their program, John Wyer went back to the Mark I architecture, and with great drivers like Jackie Ickx and Jackie Oliver, they won Le Mans in 68 and 69.
And of course, that world famous Gulf livery on those cars in 68 and 69.
Those were heady times.
1 of 31, that's Rarity. But this car also technically is 1 of 1, it being the first road car delivered to a customer. And that customer, I know, has an interesting connection to Carroll Shelby.
The first owner, James Fielding, he was the head man of the company that built the dynamometers that Carroll Shelby used to test the engines in his race cars. And Jackie Stewart was part of the Ford Motor Company goodwill team, you might say, that was present when Mr. Fielding took delivery of this car. Yeah, he's only a 3-time world Formula One champion, but remember, he had a lot of racing experience with the Ford Motor Company, and he was one of their top dogs. Why not send him along to Mr. Fielding's house to deliver this car?
Amazing. Very cool moment, I'm sure. Well, when this car rolls across the block, or even before that, when it's displayed at Mecum Kissimmee in 2025, it's gonna get a lot of attention, and it's our honor to be in this car's presence right now today. Can't wait to see it go.
And we should mention to everybody that if they would like to see this car in person, well, there's only one place to do that, and that'll be at the Mecum auction in Kissimmee, Florida. That's January 7th through the 19th, 2025.
You and I and this beautiful machine will all be there.